honestly, this was just something I wanted to do, and I'm still here. I'm still doing it. So I'm still it's an accomplishment, some might say, but for me, it's still a work in progress. Um, yeah. So just keep yourself grounded. Make sure you know what your priorities are in the first place. For me, that's what kept me going. Was I know that I want to graduate from my graduate degree. I know I want to make use of it, whatever wherever it takes me, whatever it is, whatever the plan is for me.
Hi everybody, I am Rox De Leon and this is episode 8 of A Curious Character. This episode is a conversation with Carmela Padilla. In this episode, Carmela shared anecdotes of how she navigated her graduate school application in the United States, coming from the Philippines as an electronics and communications engineering student at UP Diliman. After finishing her master's in electrical engineering, she has stayed in the US and is now working in an American multinational corporation as an electronics and control engineer. Without further ado, let's get started with this episode. Welcome to A Curious Character. I'm so excited to be here today with my good friend, Carmela Padilla. And for this episode, so you've been in the episode, in the first one, the pilot episode, so you'll be my repeat guest.
Yeah.
Hi, Mela. And yeah, it's interesting for this one because specifically I asked you to talk to us about your graduate school story, how you navigated
Mhm.
triple E, going from triple E to then pursuing grad school in the US, which
Mhm.
interestingly, as I was preparing or as I was setting up this Zoom call today, I was checking my email and I saw an email from a triple E student asking me how I got into Berkeley and then how I financed, was I a scholar and such. So I
Uh-huh.
was so excited to share this episode that we have because I feel like it's a good opportunity for those students who are graduating this upcoming second semester to
Yeah. Yeah.
start preparing, okay, start deciding or thinking about going to grad school if they want to go to graduate school, and it would give them ample time to prepare and just think about a timeline, what a timeline is like for someone who came from UP Diliman and now has been in the States for how long?
Three.
three
I think three.
years right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 years.
2017. Yeah. 2020. Yeah.
So yeah, it's been
3 years.
a while. And I guess we could start by talking about why you decided to apply for masters. If you could start with, if you've thought about it, like when you were
Yeah.
graduating, when did that thought process
Yeah.
start?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me back.
Of course.
I feel like the first episode was just a pilot, so it was just a trial phase, but it went on to a lot of episodes. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, thought process for masters. I didn't think of it at this. Sorry, I think I thought of that in between college life, probably on our third or fourth year, which is weird and funny on my side because I had to. My third year and fourth year were make it or break it phase because I think on my third year I failed several subjects all at once. And then my goal at that time was just, okay, I have to repeat this subject and it's going to be painful because I have to go through this again. But my goal is still to graduate in on time, which was 5 years for our program. And then for some reason I said like I'm relearning stuff and it's really cool. And I guess probably I failed it the first time because I didn't study properly or I didn't learn the concept properly. So that made me very interested in, you would say, advanced learning or learning more. I thought of like, okay, if I stop at college, I guess it just stops there. I have to work. I don't know. I don't know what happened. So I thought maybe masters is something else I can look into. So it was just really a wandering thought. So it was never at the start of freshman year when I graduated. It was in between. So
Yeah. And I feel like even with the past conversations that I've had with different people who who went to grad school is that when you're in that stage and you're in undergrad, your goal just shifts to I need to pass this course, I need to graduate, and then I will think about what I want to do about my degree later on.
yeah,
So then I know, if I remember correctly, you still took the board exam here in the Philippines, right?
I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I did.
So when you graduated, you work for a company in the Philippines afterwards. Was that intentional? Like, what was your intention going into that company when you knew that you wanted to go to grad school and pursue further studies?
Sure, it wasn't really planned much at the start. So when I knew that I wanted to do grad school, my parents were on board with it. They were very supportive. They said that if you want to do grad school or master's per se, just do it early. Don't do it when after your work, during your work, because my parents' perspective is when you start earning, you'll lose that drive to study more. And that was an actually good advice. At the same time, obviously, at that point, I didn't understand what that meant. But then I said, okay, I actually wouldn't know that, so maybe I should just do that. Their only condition was I had to do the boards. So um, I guess you would say, as an Asian parent, Asian parent tip, it's just if you fail, I guess there's a like a plan B or a backup plan. Um, so that was their only condition. So when I was applying for masters, I think that was when we were graduating and studying. Or sorry, I think you took the board exam
Yeah,
before
I did. Yeah.
I did. So yeah. So when we graduated, so that was June because they just moved the semester, and then applying for the master's application was already in the works at that time.
Oh,
So yeah, so it was actually in December, or I was just like casually looking through. I don't remember the timeline, but
okay. So,
um
if I understood it correctly, so we graduated 2016, and then
mhm.
you went to the States for 2017, was it? Fall
August, yeah,
2017?
fall, yeah, yeah, August.
So, so essentially, during that time that you were reviewing for the boards was scheduled for October. So you were reviewing from June to October, right? And then after that, did you start right away to Accenture after you passed the board exam?
Mm-mm.
So,
So the I started in January
all right.
actually. So you would say the December is like a full month, no work, just but oh, I already knew. I think I was still applying at some other jobs, and then Accenture was just the first one to return an offer, and then January was the start. So I said, okay, it works well. I don't have to start in December. It's January. There's no, I think we talked about this, a bond or contract or
Right,
whatsoever.
right.
Um, and it was actually my aunt and uncle who suggested that maybe I could just work for a few months. Um, uh, work for a few months, like rather than just waiting idly for the results.
Yeah. So,
So yeah.
can you talk to me about the timeline? Like, so we get a timeline of how things unfolded from June of 2016, the time that we graduated from undergrad.
The timeline and based
Timeline of
on
like
what's in there.
of your application, choosing schools, etc., where to go,
Sure,
what are the
sure. Yeah,
considerations.
yeah. For that, I really am really thanking my aunt and uncle for that because they really helped me a lot. As soon as they knew that I wanted to do masters, and it was actually just UP at the start, and then they said, let's take it up a notch. Like, if you want to do masters really bad, just do it in the US, right? And so they actually helped me with a lot of things. So they had to tell me, well, I looked at the process also, and you had to take the GRE, you had to take the TOEFL or the English exam, English proficiency exam. Um, GRE is you also took it. It's like an entrance exam for graduate school, and you have to have a certain score for a specific school you're applying. So it's like the SATs, but for grad school. And then there's no application exam for grad school, so that I thought that was weird, but I guess that's how the process works. Timeline wise, yeah. So applications usually it varies per school, but we usually know they're at the end of the year. So let's assume end of 2016. So that's November, December 2016, and then results come in March, February, April in that timeline for August 2017. So it was pretty stressful because I think preparing for boards, they had early sessions before actual graduation. So I actually went ahead and went to the early sessions of board exam review. And then I was already doing that, and then and then the graduation came, and then I was studying for the GRE. I think at some point I was studying for the GRE. I think 2 months before. I know I took the GRE twice before sending it, just because it was recommended if I don't, the first one is just the trial, and then the second
Right.
one's okay, do better. You have, but
Right.
the what is the term? You just have to make sure that you are actually better on the second try, and you just don't think of
For
it just
sure.
a trick shot. Yeah. So that was there, and then I also had to take the TOEFL, which is the English proficiency exam. I had to take that in December. So I took that last because the scheduling was very difficult, and December was the only thing that worked for me because
Wow.
it was a Saturday, and it was in Makati. So
Okay.
yeah, I
So
had to take it. Mhm.
when did you end up taking the GRE? Was it after the board exam or like November?
Yeah, it was after the board exam November. So after GR, I think after the boards, I completely shifted my thinking to okay, GRE. But because it was a good refresher because we were already studying for the boards, so there was a lot of math and there was a lot of science in there. So the GRE for me preparation was really about the essay.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but I planned my studying to be board and then for the boards and then for the GRE, just because I know I can't cram preparation for GRE. And at the same time, I was also fulfilling all the statement of purpose, the recommendation letters. Yeah, so all that, and then looking up schools, what the requirements were per school, what is the GRE requirement grade, all those things. So I had it was, I can't really tell, but I know that the preparation for applying schools is during the time I was also preparing for boards. But the
Right.
exams for GRE and TOEFL I took after board exams.
Right. Because I'm
Hmm.
assuming by the time that you took the GRE, you already knew which schools you want to apply to. Because
Hmm.
when you sign up for a GRE exam to get the four free schools that you
Yeah,
get
yeah,
with the
exactly.
application, you have to list down the schools that you had. So, how
Hmm.
was the process of like sorting out or filtering out the schools that you would consider going into?
Sure. So I had to start first with what kind of degree you want, right? And
Yeah,
then
of course. Yeah.
so engineering was still my way to go, and master of science. So that was it. And then you uh, select which ones are the best school. And then I also had to convert our GWA or grade weighted average to a GPA conversion, which is the highest is flipped. It's like a 4 versus a 1. So frankly speaking, I wasn't the best college student, which, that's just the life. I
Yeah.
barely passed, and I'm very thankful that I did all the hard effort and work for that. So if we convert that into the GPA, it's really not good. I would say like a B, or basically an above average student. I'm not even up there. So the schools that I selected weren't really the top notch schools. For example, I didn't apply for UC Berkeley. I didn't apply for um, Georgia Tech, or just like all the famous engineering schools that offer masters for international students with good locations. Because um, applying is really expensive. So you also have to be really. I think you also know this. Like you have to be
Yeah.
also really careful about which schools you want to apply, because if you know you're not guaranteed of getting in, then what's the point of, I guess, spending that money and that
Yeah.
time for it? Because you're not only spending your time, you're also spending that time of the people you're asking recommendations for, right? um, so that first happened. So you reduce the size of the schools that you want to go into versus the grade that you graduated with. and then the scores that you need. So that came up. And then location wise, we were centralized, or I centralized in the Midwest because my parents were comfortable if I stayed with relatives that were close, and they not necessarily that I have to live with, but in the area. So Midwest was the place to go, and that led me to IUPUI, or I got my degree from Purdue. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then how did you prepare that application process? Like, so I think you talked a bit about the GRE already, then preparing for TOEFL, and then for the other requirements, like asking for like recommendation letters and all. How was it like for you?
Very uncomfortable because you have to. It's like I wasn't really a teacher's pet in college. No offense to all those who are teacher's pet, but so it was very hard to get connections from professors who really know you in your class, and at the same time you can trust in giving you good recommendations.
Right.
I'm not saying that don't choose some professor that you got a failing grade just because you have no options, but even thinking of your recommendation, or sorry, thinking of the sources of your recommendation is also very important and strategic, because you don't want them to feel like it's their responsibility to make you pass or to make you accepted in the program and the school that you want to go to. They're only there to give you strong support about your determination and will to go into a program. So
Yeah. So you chose to ask recommendations from professors in UP, right? Before back
yeah,
then.
I did from UP a few, and I think I chose almost the same professors for all my recommendation letters, because I didn't really create a lot of connections for my professors back in college. Also, at the same time, I felt that it's a sense of relationship that you build with them. So if you have, not unless like the schools you're going for, there's actually alumni that you would ask recommendations from it. But since I do not have that, if you choose the right professors or the right people to give you recommendations, then I think they can provide you with every school that you want to apply to.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I got from UP, from the university, and some teachers from my high school.
Yeah.
Just to give a broad range.
And then since you mentioned earlier that you decided, or you, like the master's idea floated into your head like mid college and all, is there something that looking back you would do had you known that you would be applying for grad school later on, or something that for students listening right now who are still in their undergrad, what could they do to prepare for that process the moment they realize, oh, I want to go to grad school?
Yeah, I think you did this also. If you know that you want to go to grad school, do well in your studies, first of all. Like, it sounds really redundant and cliche that your grades will take you anywhere. The grades matter once you apply to the schools, but honestly, it doesn't once you get in. It just, yeah, you're agreeing with that. So it just matters for application. It doesn't matter once you get in, because after that you make your own grades, right? So that's one thing. Second is that if you really want to be in grad school, you can start talking to people. I think that's what you did. You started to connect with people who have done grad school, whether it's in the Philippines or abroad, or just did postgraduate work, or who are in the academe, because that it's just extra years being in school, really. So yeah, those are just things that I thought I knew or wish I could have known when I was applying.
Yeah, thanks for that. And just for the record, if of course we always want to do well and have good grades, but if we end up not getting the best grades, I didn't have the best grades in all courses that I took. It's not gonna break your application for the students. I mean,
Yeah.
you can always compensate it with something, some experiences or like other things that you could
Yeah.
have done. So yeah, definitely try to do better with your academics. But if you fail a course or two, it doesn't you don't really necessarily lose chance of getting admitted into a good program. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I failed like probably 5 subjects. I don't know. I failed and, still graduated on time. Um, I fulfilled my master's in the US from, I guess, a good university, which is Purdue. So,
Yeah,
ooh, go Boilers. But it doesn't really stop you. I think if there's a will, there's a way.
for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And since you spent that so much time preparing for a GRE, TOEFL, and all that, basically like 6 months of your or half of your year spent preparing and thinking about graduate school. And then you
Yeah.
started, January came, and you submitted all your applications. Now you just anxiously wait for decisions to come in.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your mindset back then? Like while you were patiently waiting for the results, how did you prepare your mindset and all for whatever will
Mindset.
happen?
Sure. I think at that point I was mentally tired that okay, I finished all my applications. I finished all my applications. I finished emailing the professors I gave recommendations. So I was mentally tired per se, and it was just more of a relief, a breath of relief because it's like okay, that's done now. Now there's more things that I
Yeah.
have to do or just focus on that. I think my mentality going in through the following year of 2017 was just that I think I've done what I can. Um,
You started a
I
new job.
I start a new job. Hopefully this job distracts me well from getting so anxious about the results. And it didn't really matter if I got accepted or not at that point. Because that's what my parents told me. They said like if you really want masters, God will make a way for you.
Yeah.
Um, if not, maybe the US is not just for you.
Yeah.
Maybe you just have to work harder here in the Philippines. But I think at that point, whatever it is, I still wanted to do masters if
Yeah.
or just graduate program, whether it is here in the US or in the Philippines, didn't really matter.
How many schools did you ended up applying to?
Yeah, good question. Wait 1 second. Let me count. I think 4, all
Oh,
Midwest.
okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Do you mind sharing which schools these were?
sure. IOPY, so that's Indiana University, Purdue University. It's just a joint venture in Indianapolis, which is the
Yeah.
capital of Indiana, and then University of Kentucky, U of K, and then University of Louisville, which is also in Kentucky. And I tried applying for what's U of I, University of Illinois, and
Chicago? Or
no,
Urbana Champaign?
in Urbana, the
Champaign.
the main one,
Wow.
yeah. But my grades didn't go in. It's just I knew, but I still tried. So
Yeah.
it's just like
Just so
it's
you
just
know,
like one of those
yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think that's it. Or I think University of Toledo. Because University of Toledo with my GPA, I knew I'll pass. I'll get in. So it's literally just a fallback. And then the University of U of I, University of Illinois is just very high standards and you have a low standards and you have the middle ones.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Top
no sponsors
notch.
intended. Yeah, no sponsors intended.
UC is like up there, and it's one really great school, but it's so cold. I had friends who went there for undergrad, and they're like, yeah, it's a good school, and
It is.
it,
It's really up there for engineering. Yeah.
yeah, and but it's really cold. Well, all the schools it chose have like cold winters, so it's more like where you are
Midwest.
living. Yeah, Midwest life. And then
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
you
That's
applied for
true.
all those schools, and then the anxious arduously waiting for results and all, how did you find out that you got into
That's a very
Purdue?
funny story. Sorry, I started laughing. Um, sure. I think I got my results March. I don't know if we talked about this somewhere in March. And then I was actually at work when I received it. So I remember the day right exactly. So um I knew that the results were coming in that week because that's what the website said. So I have been refreshing my email
Was
like
it
every
like
day.
mid-March or late March at that time?
Started of the March, like first week of March. That and then I was at work. So what happened was, I think we were in training, just a quick session of training, and then I finished my exercise, so I went to the bathroom. So obviously that's when I checked my phone. And then when I checked my phone, I was in the bathroom, and it said like, "Congratulations!" I didn't even read it. I didn't even read the email. I just saw like who is it from, and then congratulations, and then I just like dance in the bathroom by myself. I was like, I forgot. Yeah, so that totally happened. So I didn't come back to my desk. I called my mom. I called my dad. I said this is happening, and I'm so glad no one was in the bathroom because I think I almost shrieked. And yeah, and then I went back just relaxing and just like working, like nothing happened. Like complete change of mood, complete change of pace. And then I said, okay, mom, I gotta go to work now. Don't freak like just I'll show you the email when I get home. So it was a really normal day, and it was one of the best experiences in the world.
Yeah. Did anyone in your office know about this application that you got
Mm-mm.
in and such? So it was a secret from
No,
everyone, even from our
yeah,
group of friends. I mean, a few of us
yeah.
knew, and then until they found, oh, Carmela graduated from masters. Like, oh, she went to the
Well, no,
States.
well, I think you knew.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, because my personality is really not just telling my life. It's just I feel like I don't need to, so I didn't have to. I only
Yeah.
told the people who had to know. Um, but yeah, no one definitely at work knew. No one knew because you will create negative impact on your team. Because just think about it. If you started working for your new job and to think that you might leave, that just ruins your image. They might not even rely on you. They might not even
Mm.
give you more work. So I still wanted to prove myself and see if I can make it in the software industry or the IT industry, being an engineer also. And at the same time, do I feel like the industry is good for me, or would I love academia more in the end? So
Yeah.
yeah,
And getting into a good school, getting admitted is just the start of the process. Even you feel like everything is done, you've finished your applications, and that's just the beginning. Once you get
yeah,
admitted, you face another problem, and that
yeah,
is going to the US is very expensive. How am I going to fund my education and not that?
yeah,
So how, if you don't mind sharing,
yeah.
how did you prepare your mind going through that, knowing that you might have to, you know, work your ass off to get some to fund your education and like pay whatever it is that you need to pay and such.
Yeah, yeah. So as soon as I knew that we got accepted, and with the school that I wanted to go into, um, there really was no turning back. Because in my head, okay, I know that everyone in my family is gonna say yes to this. Um, so at work it was pretty normal, just do everything 100% and more, go above and beyond what I'm requested at for, and which was my work ethics. And then um, every um, salary pay that I got in a month, I saved up actually, and I con- didn't really convert it in cash, but I just in dollars, but I just saved it just in case I needed it. Um, that was my dad's thinking, because he said like we don't know what's going to happen in the U.S., so might as well save every salary that I get, like on top of food, gas, commute expenses. That's there, but yeah, that's it. And then we had to set up. Well, I had to set up my passport renewal because mine was also expiring that year. And then we also had to set up the visa appointment. So that was also there for the student visa. So that was there. It was a lot of more appointments set up. Um, and then what else did we have to do? Oh, tickets, yeah. So tickets were also there, and it was. I think in my head it wasn't. I didn't really think of anything else. I didn't really think that it would end up with me living here right now. I'd say it was merely just like, oh, I'm just studying again for 2 years or so, and so yeah, that's how it was. So I left in August. Yeah.
Yeah. And how was preparing for that big move? Like, how did you set your mind with, like, I'll be staying in the US for the next 2 years, we'll be seeing, uh, we'll be a different time zone away from France and just completely studying. How were you preparing for that? Like, knowing that you'll leave and you don't know if you will come back.
Sure. I don't actually remember. I think I was just so excited at that point that that masked all the anxiety and fear of moving into a different country. Um, immersing yourself in a new culture that you probably only watched in movies, um, or read about. It's quite overwhelming. I think I think, as I said, I was too excited that this is all just working out. Like I got my visa appointment, I got my passport appointment renewal set, like everything was going smoothly, and it was, and like everyone was like, oh, congratulations, and like thank you, and then but it was yeah, it was more excitement, and I think that was large enough to mask the anxiety and fear behind moving.
Right.
Yeah, so basically it just didn't really sink in, and because I knew I was very simple-minded at that point, so I knew that going here it was masters, graduate, get that degree. So it was, I was purely driven for that thought. So I think that was, that was my driving factor.
So, what were your expectations before you entered grad school, and how was it like when you finally got there? The community,
Well,
how was it? Your
okay.
expectations as you were going to graduate school versus the reality of when you step into that university and have to study again for the next 2 years.
Sure. Expectations. A lot of adjustments, really. For sure, that was my expectation. It was also reality. A lot of adjustments, a lot of English speaking time, which honestly was quite difficult at first, even though we're talking so we're talking fluently and straight right now without any pauses in
Right.
Tagalog. But that was an expectation I was not really ready to face. In reality, I struggled for some words that I couldn't speak in English. So that was there. In the community, graduate school is just like any other freshman day at school. You don't know anyone, not unless you have your best friend in life that you are in the same program with. So everything's new, which was the same expectation and reality that I had. The living is quite different. So expectation was, I didn't really have any expectations because I didn't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of living there is that everything was so advanced. Just like how teachers are very responsible about their time, how they expect their students to be also responsible, how everyone is fully equipped with the latest technology, how the school is equipped with the latest technology, how honestly how cool the buildings were, given
Right.
that we graduated from UP. Everything to me was, I felt like I was living in the future, just like a different country. But I honestly felt like I was living in the future. In like just trying to get food at trying to get food for lunch. That was, everything was like a fast food type or like a food court type. So it's just get grab and go. And yeah, the expectation of using money versus credit card, hard cash versus a credit card, that was something I didn't know actually. So In the Philippines, we always use cash for
Yeah.
everything, or debit card, really. Credit card is, we think it's a luxury to have it, or an expense to have it, but there everyone uses it. So I thought, wow, that is something I never thought about. Yeah, just there's a lot. I think not a lot of expectations, just a lot of surprises in reality. So
How was the learning environment? Like your classmates, did you expect? Because at least for me, for example, for my situation, coming into
mhm.
Berkeley, I was expecting everyone to be so good, like intelligent geniuses, etc. And all of them are. But one thing that I realized is that Filipinos could are at par with their level of intelligence. Like we could keep up with them. So I'm curious to know, how was it for you attending classes and all that? You know, like we had classmates in UP who are outliers, going above and beyond,
Yeah,
graduating in
yeah,
4 years
yeah.
and all. So how would you compare that to those people that you met
Um,
in grad school?
yeah, yeah. Um, Engineering is the same. There's going to be outliers out there. I I'd say I'm above average in my classes. Um, there are some ridiculously talented geniuses out there that really didn't struggle with graduate class. Maybe because they just got used to it, but for us, it's, we have to learn it. We have to really work hard on it, study about it in order for us to get moving. Yeah, so it was I guess because of the less classes that we have to take in graduate studies, you're able to focus more rather than juggle a full load in college. So that gives you more time to process things and gives you more
Yeah.
time to focus on priorities.
True, true. And for masters, yeah, that's correct what you said. For masters, we do have less credit units, or like less classes than
Yeah.
how much we have for undergrad. So that's something good that we could actually focus on, building relationships, finding jobs, deciding what we want to do after graduate school and all that. And I
Hmm.
actually want to talk about job hunting and all after this. But before we leave this conversation or this topic,
Yeah.
I'd like to ask
Yeah.
you, like, as a Filipino who got to experience what it feels like to study in a university in the US, what would you say are your key takeaways from that whole experience that someone living here in the Philippines you think would appreciate? Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Um, I guess it's coming from personal perspective. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's one key takeaway, because whether or not you know people when you come into the graduate program, or whether or not you're by yourself, no one else can answer your questions if you don't ask them in the first place. So whether it is a stupid question at class, or just directions on where the restroom is, or just directions on how to read your schedule, it makes a difference that you push yourself to ask a question, because first of all, no one knows you. That is so, if you're so afraid, I know that like a Filipino mentality is just like, everyone's gonna judge me. I'm gonna fail at this. I'm gonna suck at whatever it is I'm doing. I'm like, man, you're in a different country now. No one else literally knows you. So whether they judge you or not, you don't care, because you don't know them, they don't know you. You're basically just asking every question that they had in their heads. Where's the restroom? Which way is room 127? I don't know, just like that. So that's really a key takeaway. Just don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, and don't be afraid to be judged, because at the end of the day, if you get judged, so what? Maybe you won't
Right,
even meet them, right?
right, you're right.
Yeah, so that's one key takeaway that I learned. Just be open, ask questions, whether it's a stupid question. There are no stupid questions, is what I think. um a takeaway that I think, coming from the Philippines, is, guys, Asians are good. students. They are, yeah, I say that Asians are good students, and especially like you already graduated college, and you have people want to study anymore. They just like give up work, earn and survive for a living.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have because I think Filipinos are very ambitious, honestly, and resourceful. Um, that was actually a trait that I'd say I brought here because you make ways to make sure you get details, you get those classes in, you get those requirements in. So yeah, don't like it's true what they said that Asians are just really hard workers. Yeah. Like
And
I don't know if you agree with my key takeaways, like yeah, like you also have yours, right?
yeah, and that's very true. And you can even see it, like for those who are here in the Philippines, we don't get a lot of funding, and then we always are late with the new trends. So we have to be resourceful, living in a
Yeah.
low resource country. And one thing that we really struggle as a community is to ask questions. So that's very true. And even if I
Mm-hmm.
would say, even if you're in the Philippines as a student, I think that's a good takeaway that you got is that in the US, you learn that it's okay to ask questions. And maybe one thing that students in the Philippines could also do is to don't um, hesitate to reach out to people who you think can help you. Don't hesitate to send that cold email, because the worst thing that could happen really is they don't reply. And if they don't reply, at least you did not waste their time, but at least you tried and you knew that, okay, there is no what if I tried to email this person. So what if I tried to ask you this
Yeah.
question?
Yeah. Based from personal experience, if you don't ask, they won't know what you're thinking.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
people, unless proven, people can't read minds. So, not unless you are, I don't know, so you have superpowers, then no one will know
Yeah.
what you think, right? So,
Right. Yeah. So then moving on to the next chapter of your life after you graduated, you chose to stay in the US. Um, so what are you doing now, and how was that process like?
yeah, I am. Can I mention the company?
Yeah,
I
of
don't
course.
know. Anyway,
If you're comfortable.
okay, yeah, I'm no sponsor intended. I am I currently I am a electronic controls engineer for an engine company. It's called Cummins Incorporated. We have some in the Philippines. In the Philippines we make engines for pickup trucks.
It is very ECE, or in the US, very EE, right?
Very, I'd say very, but I am working right now on the software's point of view, so the software controls point of view, but it's still a lot of ECE application, so which is fun.
Mm-hmm. And how is it for those who are interested to learn about how to get a job in the States? Because, for example, if you go to Japan, I think based on what NJ has told me in the past, is
Mm-hmm.
that you get to, I think you
Mm-hmm.
apply for a visa, for a working visa, and then you get to work in Japan. And if you switch jobs later on, if your visa is still valid, you can stay there. But in the US,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
It's different.
as an international student transitioning to someone who's working, um what are the requirements, at
Mm-hmm.
least for like high level requirements, that students should know if they are looking to
Sure, sure,
study in the
yeah.
States, yeah, and then work?
Yeah. So if you study in the States, you'll get what we got. It's a F1 visa, which is student visa. So an F1 is from the U.S. Embassy, and they stamp it in your passports, and then I think the duration is 5 years, right? Yeah. So it's a 5 year duration, and that is what gets you in the U.S. and that what makes you legal to stay in the U.S. for the amount of time that's written on your passport. Um, to be able to work um, during your student visa is there's a lot of restrictions, but make sure that if you want to work like extra hours at school, it has to be in school because you're international. You can't do side jobs like at your McDonald's, local McDonald's, or a fast food chain or whatever it is. You have to work in school. If you want to take it a notch further, you have to get an internship first of all, because no one will hire an international student off the bat if you don't have experience, because they would rather hire an American, because an American knows the whereabouts of how the US industry is. They will also hire an American because they don't have to pay for your visa sponsorship. So that's where we're coming into. If you're a STEM, okay, so STEM major, science, technology, engineering, and math major, which we both are, you can apply for OPT at the end of your graduation, which is optional practical training. So this is good for a year, but if you're a STEM, you for 3 years. You can extend it for up to 2 more years, so 3 years total. So this just means that having that extra 3 years after your program, you can apply for jobs that will hire international students. Meaning that they don't necessarily have to pay for your visa sponsorship, because technically it's still tied to your school, because this is a practical training. But for it to be approved, your job, or the job you're applying for, or the job you were accepted into, has to be connected to your graduate degree. So that's there. So that's 3 years. And then if you want to, once your 3 years are up, then you have to apply for a work visa, which is called H1. Right now, it's currently a lottery system. So they collect all the pool applicants for the H1, and they randomly select it. So this is the difficult part, because not all U.S. companies sponsor visas. So if you want to work for a company, you have to find a company that will sponsor a visa and also help you apply for that work visa. So the work visa only applies once your OPT paperwork or optional training is up or expires. And this work visa will replace your student visa. So
Okay.
yeah, right now I am on work visa.
Oh, okay. So you're not on OPT anymore, is it? Or
No, I'm was really lucky because I transitioned to work visa because I got chosen in the lottery.
right.
Which I'm really thankful and grateful for. I got chosen for that. So when I was on OPT itself, they applied, my company applied, the company I work for applied for my work visa, and then I got selected. So I transitioned from student, OPT, and then now I'm on work visa.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And I feel, I'm not sure if my information is correct, but if as you get a higher degree, your chances of getting in, like the winning the lottery, increases, right?
Yeah. If you're, I don't know if that system will change. If your bachelor's degree, you have a lower chance. Excuse me, you have a lower chance of getting in versus if you have an advanced degree. So if you're an advanced degree, they get more applicants from the advanced versus getting a bachelor's or from the
Yeah.
bachelor's graduate.
Yeah. Okay, that's very helpful information. And I'm sure if students would want to learn more about that, there are so many blogs out there that they could look at, right? Specifically focuses on how to get a job after you went to the US for as an international student. So maybe to wrap up this conversation, if you could you give us maybe an advice for Filipinos who want to go to graduate school abroad, specifically in the US? What would it be? And if you could give
That's
three,
a lot.
maybe you can do that.
Three
Yeah,
pieces of advice. Okay, three pieces
yeah.
of advice.
On top of your head, whatever
You
comes out.
have you thought of pieces of advice? What about you? Have you thought of?
Yeah, I did have. I feel like I asked this to everyone who guests in the show, and I wanted to see if people have different pieces of advice that they think are most important, at least for your case,
Sure.
based on your experiences.
Yeah, based on my experience, definitely. On top of my head, wow, this is a lot of pressure you put into your guests. Man, you put a lot. Anyway,
Or maybe think about advice that you would give yourself as a Filipino who wanted to go to graduate school abroad. It would make things easier. Like, what would you wanted to hear if you were that person back then?
yeah, I think you have just one advice is always just be grounded. That was really fun, but sorry. Um, always be always be grounded in a way that just don't let achievements or accomplishments get on the top of your head because you know everyone has different meaning, has different definitions of success and accomplishments. um Honestly, this was just something I wanted to do, and I'm still here, I'm still doing it, so I'm still it's an accomplishment, some might say, but for me it's still a work in progress. Yeah, so just keep yourself grounded, make sure you know what your priorities are in the first place. For me, that's what kept me going was I know that I want to graduate from my graduate degree. I know I want to make use of it, whatever wherever it takes me, whatever it is, whatever the plan is for me. Um, so that's one thing. Second is I think I mentioned this from my key takeaway is just don't be afraid to ask questions. 100%. I from personal experience, if you don't ask questions, like you won't know what's coming to you if you don't ask questions. You won't know if you're failing a class already. And being an international student, we cannot fail a class because that will lead us to getting probation and possibly getting sent back to the Philippines. So that's a waste of money wherever you got your money from, and it's just a waste of time. You just wasted a university's time in accepting you, getting you through the US and all that. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, Also, don't be afraid to be judged because you're not from here. I mean, I'm not from here. I was not born here. I was born and raised in the Philippines. So I literally don't know whatever they're talking about, right? So don't be afraid to ask 100%. And then third is I think it comes with the first one, but um, just always. Oh, I guess. Well, the keep grounded also comes for keep grounded also in terms of your support system. Support system will go through a long way, even though it's a support system, small support system. If it's just your family, if it's just a few friends, if it's literally just your mom or just your dad, just having someone there, because it gets pretty lonely and just really maybe even depressing sometimes. Just you probably I don't know if you felt it, but because you do things, you're by yourself, you're literally signing up for independence. So yeah, and then so that comes with a be grounded, I guess. But you also take it as a third advice because I'm trying to end with a really good third advice, but I can't think of any. So um yeah, maybe just always be on top of your game. I know that there might be a lot of setbacks when you do your masters or when you go here in the US, or just a lot of shortcomings, but don't give up. Always, just get up. You never know, a failure might lead you to a bigger opportunity,
Yeah.
like how I got into my job. So it's, or I wasn't the best in college, but here I am. So it's yeah, just don't give up. So
Yeah, wonderful. And I really like your story about, getting to where you are despite the shortcomings that you've experienced as an undergrad. Everything that we've experienced in Triple E, um, we've met great friends, but not we didn't have a smooth road getting into graduation and finally, getting a good job, landing a good
yeah,
school for
yeah,
graduate school. And yeah, it's a great.
yeah,
I think it's a great takeaway. Great way to end this episode, especially the grounded one. What I got from that is, as long as you know why you're going into something, um, trust that everything will back into its own place. And yeah,
yeah, yeah.
because when you ground yourself, and we know this from Triple E concept, you always have a reference point, and that's the
Just like,
purpose of
yeah, yes.
um be it positive or negative potential, there is still potential, and as long as you know
Oh my
where your reference is, it will
You
all
have
work
like
out.
three
So
puns in this. Wow, I just used one and you used like two. Wow. Wow.
yeah.
They should get us to like model or something. Do like a commercial. Um yeah, definitely be grounded is one. If you're really into your faith, that will also come in there. You just need to keep yourself grounded because US life makes you crazy, man.
Yeah, yeah, and like just getting through each day, finances and all, it's very expensive and different. One thing that I've learned from all these conversations that I've had offline and online with different people is that different people have their own ways of how they get through something, and everyone's situation is unique. And the purpose
Yeah.
of sharing these stories is to get an insight and get more samples of what these people's stories are, but doesn't necessarily mean that if this person is successful with what he or she is doing right now, that doesn't mean you have to follow that 100%. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
other people have their own advantages in other things, but there are disadvantages in a certain thing that maybe this other person is, more advantaged at. And we just have to make use of our strengths and not um delve too much into, oh, I don't have a good grade for undergrad, or oh, I don't have money to pay for grad school, because if it's for you, it's for you.
Yeah,
Great,
like I
yeah.
think I said it before. If you have the will to do it, there will always be a way to get into
Right,
that.
for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so this has been a great conversation. And if you have someone like you would like me to, or you think would be a good guest in this episode, or what you think would be something that we could talk about in the future, I'm always happy to listen. And that is it for this chat. If you like this episode or would like to suggest a future topic, let me know by sending me a quick message. I'm always looking for interesting conversations and hope to share more similar stories in the future. My Twitter handle is at rocksalt, that's ROXSALT. You may also send me an email at rocksalt.acc@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in and see you in the next one.